I'm Carly from Communicate Powerfully. I help people leaders and organisations who have emerging leaders have the conversations that really matter and have them well, because there's a good chance these are the conversations that, because they're a little bit uncomfortable, you may be avoiding. With that in mind, I get this question so often, nearly every workshop or program that I run. And a client will say to me, surely it makes sense to get it right, you would email it. And I understand that question, because email does give you time to think about the structure of how you're putting the words together and consider who it is that's receiving the information. But here's the thing. If you are having vital, courageous, difficult conversations via email, you need to stop it right now, because there's a good chance that that is not getting you the intended outcome. If you're really honest, are you seeing behaviour change as a result of that email? If you are, I would be amazed, because here's the thing. It's not so much about what you're saying as how you're saying it. And if we were to put it into a bit of a graph, it'd look something like this. When it comes to how your communication is received, it looks like this as a pie graph. So about that much of the pie graph represents the words you say, which is where we get people leaders that say, but we've had this conversation. I've told them they should know. But if the behaviour is not changing and you're not getting the outcome you're after, something is falling flat in your communication. And you might very well be saying the right thing or what you intend with the words that you're using, but it's your tone of voice that comes across a whole lot louder than what you're saying with words. Your tone really conveys the how you're saying things. With that intonation, pitch, pace, cadence, you can hear someone's energy in the tone of their voice. For example, we've had this conversation 3 times before. We've had this conversation 3 times before. So the words are the same, but the tone and inflections change the meaning or the intensity. And people are listening to that like, haha, they're just having a joke, or they're like, freaking out. But that's not the top dog. This picture represents how your communication is received. So it's the person who's receiving your message, your communication. And the loudest part of what you're not saying with words comes through in this, your body language, which means it's about your eye contact. It's about your intensity, your gaze, your fronting on, or like, hey, chillin'. Are you smiling? Are you jovial? Or are you really hacked off? Because all of that is going to come through in what you are not saying with words. And we've been working on this as humans for over 50,000 years. We've been trying to pick up on the verbal exchange. 50,000 years since humans could communicate verbally, and most of us don't even get that right, and we've had 50,000 years to try and practice that, picking up on nuances and understanding what body language actually is saying. And so at least, well, if your communication's important, to use all your tools, you want to get in front of somebody, because then they can see the full picture of what's going on. Remember the days when we used to pick up the telephone? There was a reason for that, because if you couldn't be in the room with somebody, at least if they could hear your tone of voice, they could pick up on those variations, the intensity, whether you're having a laugh, whether you're joking, whether you're really serious and scary. That's about the piece of the pie that you've got. And arguably, relatively new in the terms of evolution of our brain being able to understand and interpret accurately when someone's on a video call, because it's only been since the late 80s, early 90s, and even closer, but in the 2000s more likely, when Skype became mainstream. And because our brain is still having to work pretty hard to try and interpret the meaning accurately, you've probably still only got about this much of the pie. But then we talk about email. What just happened to your communication pie? Somebody ate the pie, or a big chunk of the pie, because this is the slice of pie you are relying on to get your message across as intended. But the thing is, because this pie represents how your communication is received, the pie's still there because it's filled in by the receiver. How they're feeling, what type of mood they're in, how well they know you, how well they like you, how well they connect with you using bold and underlining or italics in your email. The thing that helps us to fill in the blanks as closely as possible, as accurately as possible, is this. The higher the levels of trust in the relationship, the more accurate, the more likely your emails are going to be able to land as intended. Because most of us, if we know, like you and trust you, we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you might be a little bit bolshy in this bit or this tone here, but we like you, so we'll soften it up and be like, they're obviously having a bit of a bad day. But how many of us email people we've never met before? And so with this piece of pie, no wonder email communication gets misinterpreted and the communication gets lost in translation, because actually what we're working with is only this slice of the pie, unless you've done some work in the relationship before. So when your communication is important, it is my insistence that where possible, get in front of people so that they can see the whole picture, so that you've got all your tools to get your message across as intended. At the very least, pick up the phone or insist to have a video call where that person can see you, because it's not so much about what you're saying as how you're saying it that depends on how effective your communication's going to be.